I'm Robin Armstrong and welcome to the Cosmograf Q&A. Yeah, the name Cosmograf came from my profession, selling and servicing vintage watches. There's a famous watch called Rolex Cosmograf, which I took the name from. I was never really happy being known as just Robin Armstrong for my music, really. I thought it was just too anonymous, and there was other artists out there that had the same name, so I was looking for something really unique that I could use, and also I think it gives the impression of it being a band as well, which I quite like. I've always wanted Cosmograf to be a band project, so that's really the thought process behind that. Yeah, I think guitar gives me the most scope for self-expression, really, and it's the instrument that enables me to sort of get most emotion out of. I think, but equally, I love the way the keyboards can provide sort of soundscape and that sort of breadth of texture as well. So I think I'm quite lucky that I've got both skills to be able to make records with and write with. So that really does help me to get ideas down quickly when recording and coming up with new things. Yeah, editing audio can be pretty tedious, really. Long hours in the studio, sort of moving things around. And one of the things that is particularly laborious is getting stuff into time. Just something that has to be done, really, for a really good production. Making sure that all the instruments are absolutely in line with each other and all happening at the same time. So that's something it is a necessary evil, really. Other activities are much more enjoyable, like sort of writing, really, and putting down the first guitar tracks and vocal tracks on a piece and really seeing it come to life. I think that's one of the joys, really, of taking something and then it sort of blossoms into something new. Yeah, like a new song. Yeah, surprisingly little. So most of my music is pretty melancholy and dark, really. So I don't think it's particularly influenced by any sort of mood at the time. It's just my sort of natural writing style. I find a lot of joy and beauty in that type of music. So it's not really a reflection of my mood. It's more of that's the style of music I particularly like to write. Either or, really, piano or guitar. I really just depending on what I'm sort of playing with at the time, really, and where inspiration strikes. Simple as that, really. Yeah. Always start with the music. I find it quite difficult to write lyrics without having a musical framework to work with, and also a theme. It's very important that I've got a structure and a theme to work with before I'm actually writing the lyrics to the song. So that tends to be the process. But on the other hand, I can sort of have poems and verses and things I've written independently, and sometimes bring those into it if it's applicable, which I've written down on bits of paper and stuff like that. So but generally the process goes music first, then lyrics. Yeah. Yeah, I can't read music. I work entirely by ear, so I'm relying on getting ideas down, recording them, basically. So that will either be if I'm in the studio, I can just get the guitar plugged in or a keyboard and start to get things down quickly. Or if it's just literally a riff or something and I'm around the house, then it's a simple case of just getting the phone out and recording the idea as quickly as I can before I forget it. We take this turn, we take it fast, we leave them all. Yeah, deciding what sounds to use, that's definitely a long process, and it can be quite difficult, really. You have a sound in your head that you're trying to aim towards, and often I spend hours searching through keyboard patches or synthesizer sounds, or trying to build something that I think will work. Sometimes you got happy, unexpected things you find along the way that send you off into a different direction. But I try not to get too bogged down in the mechanics of building textures and sounds. I like the song to sort of lead that process really. Otherwise, I think you can end up in a sort of circle of not really achieving the aim of writing the song. You're just sort of fiddling with sound. So it gets easier as you get more experience. I think you start to understand what will work and what won't, and what you need to do to work with other parts that are already there on the track. Yeah, definitely will be using church organ again. It doesn't appear on Mind Over Depth on the latest album, but it's an instrument that's really part of the Cosmograf sound really. I was really turned on to it when Yes used it with Awaken, Rick Wakeman's parts on that. I think it just sounds great, particularly when it's out of its sort of home environment of the church and the cathedral. You put it onto a rock track and it takes brings enormous presence to a song. It's something that I want to return to time and time again. So yeah, you'll be hearing it again, no doubt. Favourite science fiction films and books? Yeah, that's definitely a thing that I've used and been influenced by with all my music really. Say Man Left in Space. Obvious parallels and imagery I can think of were taken from 2001. There was a film called Moon, which was pretty influential when I was writing Man Left in Space. I think it was directed by Duncan Jones, David Bowie's son, and that really explored themes of isolation and sort of longing to be back home and that sort of thing. And I think that got fed into a lot of the storyline within the Man Left in Space. I was also reading a lot about the Apollo program, and I got really interested in the whole sort of endeavour that went on there in achievement. But also interesting was the backstory really in terms of the human condition and what the fallout to that was. So they had a lot of success and finally achieved their goal, but it came at a huge cost, and a lot of people died, and a lot of people had a lot of difficulties afterwards in terms of coping with the success that was achieved. And I think that story was very interesting. I think that's really what the Man Left in Space is about, is that sometimes that we're left isolated through achievement and success. So it was almost like an irony really that success isn't all what we hoped it would be. That's a fair assessment. I kept that fairly ambiguous really on how to interpret it. I quite like the idea also that he was completely delusional, and at the end of the story he sort of does away with himself. It's really down to the listener how they want to sort of interpret it really. I think that's one of the joys of making art like that, is that you keep things open, that people can interpret different meanings into stuff. I think that's always a good hallmark of art. So yeah, whichever way you want to take it really, yeah. Yeah, it's less important that an album tells a story. I think what's more important is that the album has a consistent link between the songs. I'm not really. I'm a little bit confused really by the whole concept of having an album. If the songs don't link together, if there's no sort of common theme, I mean, there doesn't seem to be a lot of point in the format otherwise. So to me, it's about making sure that each song has a place on that album in terms of its theme. It's less important than that it tells a story. I mean, I've done albums that do that, but as an example, this latest one, Mind Over Depth, it's not really a story or a narrative, but there's a very strong theme that links all the songs together. No, not really. Not tempted at all. 3-minute pop songs isn't really me. To be honest, I understand the process and the art, and I think it's great, but it's not really my style and not really what I do. I like songs that have time to develop, progress. Really, I think that's the sort of definition of, or one of the definitions of the sort of music that I do. So I can't really ever see myself straying into that area. It's an art form in itself, really, and my sort of art is different to that, really. That's a difficult question, really. It's the old classic, isn't it? Of they're all children, really, and you're choosing between them. But I think The Man Left in Space probably is maybe the album that will sort of define Cosmograf maybe in the future, or being like a classic album if there's such a thing. But I like sort of different albums for different reasons. I was really proud of the concept on that one. I think the Unreasonable Silence was very ambitious, and I was very proud of how that all came together. It was an incredible amount of work to pull that album together, more so than the others, really. When Age Has Done Its Duty will always have a special place in my heart, really, because it was a nostalgic record for me, and it sort of took me back to my childhood, so it was quite a personal album. So yeah, all the albums for different reasons, really, but with those highlights, I think. That's always one of the joys of what I do, is asking other musicians to get involved, and I sort of go through this process of putting a demo together and then deciding if I want someone else to contribute to it, or it might be a part that I'm not very confident with myself, or it might be a particular style that I'm looking for. So that can happen quite early on. I might write something with someone in mind, or it can happen much later in the process. Yeah, this album is quite a bit heavier, so I've used Colin Edwin on bass to take care of the tracks that I was particularly struggling with and reach the end of my ability. Colin's an amazing player, and this material is absolutely suited to him in what he does, and with much sort of heavier tones and faster playing. Equally, Carl Fenton on drums. Carl had played with me on Hey Man Dream, so this was a very different sounding record. But he sort of really smashed this one, really, and given it a very contemporary sort of almost to a prog metal sort of style drumming style, with like a double kick on a lot of sections. So he's been brilliant with that as well. So yeah, they both of them just really have made the record. Yeah. It's incredibly challenging. I was signed to a small label back in 2011, but it sort of quickly became apparent that there was really no need for it, and I could do really much of what was being done myself, and sort of keep all the money, really. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is that the potential income from projects like this is quite poor. So you have to really try and maximise what you get back, and that means sort of cutting out as many people, middle people in the process as you can, really, that are taking their cut. So everything's really gone in the direction of streaming, and there's really no reason why you can't sort of handle all that technology and yourself. You don't really need a label to do that. So that's the process I've worked on, really. I produce the records and also go do everything in the background to make that happen as my own sort of label, really. So they all get released under a Cosmograf music label, if you like, my own sort of label. And that works best for me. It enables me to keep most of the income that comes back from making records. It's worth stressing, really. I mean, selling physical is it's a lifeline really, because musicians really can't rely on just on streaming revenue. There's not enough money there. It wouldn't even pay for a couple of days of studio time. You've got to continue to shift physical sales really, and that's worrying, because obviously physical sales are dwindling, and but I think we're in a position, or luckily in a position in our genre in progressive rock, that fans are willing to still support physical releases. So I think it's about making a good product and making sure that you're giving something the fans can collect and value really, and also an opportunity to buy something, even if they're not going to listen to the CD or listen to the vinyl. People can buy it and own it and collect it and listen to it elsewhere on streaming, but they're still supporting the band by buying physical copies, which is has the best profit in it, and it gives them at least some opportunity to the musician to make some money back really. Yeah, I think the only thing that has kept me going really is the unstoppable desire to keep making art. So I did go through a period about 5 years ago where I was very disillusioned with the whole process really, but I think I just started to accept that it's not really about you're really doing it first of all for the love of it really, and I think that you have to accept that most musicians I know, certainly in progressive rock, are taking second and third jobs in order to pay the way, and that's certainly the position I now find myself in. So you have to do it for the love of it, but you also have to make sure that what you are doing is at least paying its way. Being a small independent with no budget, you have to make best use of free really, and that means social media, the website. So I spend a lot of time, once I've made a record, literally just sort of hammering those really, and getting the word out there. It's really what really does work is other fans. Is fans talking about it with other people and sharing the music, and people almost need to be told really what to listen to, and I think that's the case, and I think peer pressure has quite a big effect on deciding on people's sort of playlists really. So influencing people to to listen to your music and then tell other people about that seems to work. So that's very much how I try and do it really, but inevitably you've only got a finite level of resource, so there comes a point where as a small independent you can't do too much really, and you get to the point where you need external help. So that's something that I'm going to have to consider in the future, is whether I then start to bring in other people to literally help out with the PR sort of side of things, and also the taking Cosmograf to the next level.
Where's the program?
Yeah, that's always a big question. Touring. I mean, it's really like this. It's really expensive to both in money and time to put any sort of show together. I did a show back in 2014, the Celebrate Festival, the last one. And it took an enormous amount of time in preparation, and it took me away from the writing process in the studio. I don't regret doing it by any means, but what came back financially only just covered our costs in terms of doing it, and even though it was well attended and it went down very well, I think there's a big risk there that you certainly bands go out and they do an album and they think that then the next part of the process is just touring the hell out of it. I think it's a bit of a trap. You can find yourself driving hundreds of miles around the country and or thousands and not really getting big audiences, getting 50 to 100 people in a room. Certainly what I found is people want to hear songs they already know when they go out to see a band, and I think that's why tribute bands do so well, but new original music tends to struggle. So it can be a real uphill battle, and I think it's a little bit of chicken and egg, but my view on it is that you have to have the audience there before you actually start doing shows, so you need the fan base. So I've gone on a different strategy really. Instead of sort of touring or trying to do shows, my strategy is to do albums and get people on board really, grow a fan base to a level that once it does come time to do a show, then I know that I'm going to be able to fill that venue and make some money back for the time that I'm going to need to invest in rehearsing and everything else. So that's the strategy I'm on really. So it will happen, but it's not going to happen anytime soon really. So it's a case of getting the audience and then taking it from there really. Okay, thanks for listening to the Cosmograf Q&A. Check out the new album Mind Over Depth, which comes out on April the 12th, and enjoy.